The galaxy is gearing up for a war, and it is up to you to take down the big boss. Will you stick with your own faction, or try to unite everyone to fight in the board game Unstoppable?
Hello and welcome to Tantrum House Studio Awesome. I'm Katie.
And I'm Ryan. In this overview video, we will be giving you a quick view of Unstoppable by Renegade Game Studios. This is a solo or co-op 1 to 2 player deck building and card crafting game that has regular play and campaign modes.
Everything we are showing you today is a prototype and might change for the final production. So the players will take on the role of one of the heroes available that has a unique starting deck. The cards are all sleeved, double-sided, and have an action for the player, and the other side is a target for a future battle.
The player or players will be drafting a new card each turn and sleeving it onto the front of an unknown target card. There are available upgrades for these cards that can augment their abilities, but the downside is that these cards will also be upgrading the targets on the other side.
Each round, after drafting a new card, the player will get to play cards. Playing cards will help you gain things like credits to buy upgrades. Allies will stay in play until they're killed or until you level up, or just to gain firepower to take down enemies.
The enemy targets have an attack value, possibly a defense value, and all of that together acts as their health. Each round they become harder to defeat, not to mention they attack the player's health if left undefeated at the end of a round.
Once defeated, an enemy card goes into your hand immediately and then can be played that round as long as there are enough action points to put it in play. To win the overall game, a player will need to meet victory conditions for the boss that they are facing that game. With several different bosses to choose from, challenges will be different for each one.
Losing the game can happen a few different ways. Not meeting the winning condition by the specified round, a player losing all of their health, or other losing conditions based on the boss.
So, during this game, you're going to be doing a lot of drafting of new cards. And one of the ways that this game is a little bit different than most every other game I've ever played is that there are many different decks, and you actually upgrade which deck you're choosing out of. So there's sort of a scale of decks, and you start out drawing and drafting cards from the very first deck, and the cards in there are good, but they aren't the best they could be. As you go further and further up this scale, the final deck is full of amazing cards. But during the game, you'll have opportunity to work your way to where you're drawing from those better decks. And that's something I think is interesting because there are actually card effects that will push you up to drawing out of those better decks for the next rounds. And so it's something you invest in as you're drafting cards, which is very interesting to me.
There are a few ways to slim down your deck because you are deck building. You want a streamlined deck that is not too difficult with all the targets and the upgrades you've given them. Mm-hmm. But also you're getting those really powerful cards as soon as you can. The main way that you'll see that comes up is as you're progressing through the round, regularly you'll get the chance to pay to destroy one of your cards and just trash it, and it won't come back. And you got to be ready for that when it comes up because those rounds proceed inexorably.
Yes. Another thing that has some neat stuff going on is synergy between the factions. So there's several different ways as you're looking at the cards, how the cards can be used to accomplish different things. They have Conspire, Focus, Bargain, and Unite. And Conspire is one where you have to have 2 cards of the same faction in your hand to be able to do it. Focus works with how many cards of a certain faction do you have in your hand. and allows you to do something based on how many of that faction. The bargain will let you lower the costs of other cards based on, what's available in your hand. And then the unite, these are like keywords on these cards. Unite is going to give you many different factions, or it's based on how many different factions you have in your hand. So as you're going through the game and you're choosing and drafting cards, you need to keep in mind whether you're going to be using a lot of the focus, where you're sticking to one faction, or you're going to be using a lot of unite, where you need a lot of variety. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind as you're working through those draftings.
As you are playing, you get to buy those upgrades, and they upgrade the card that you have every time it comes up. It's going to be better for you, but it's also upgrading the enemy. You may not want to upgrade too early before you have a good engine going, because you might not be able to withstand the attack of the enemy when they come around. And sometimes they'll get the little keywords like fast, which make it a lot harder when the enemy comes up, and you might want to just avoid that altogether.
Yeah, so a card in the card slots, like from the market that you may be buying from, it may be a cheap card that gives you great firing power, but it's also going to make the opposite side really difficult. Some of the cards are really neat because they cost a lot of credits to put into your hand. They don't give you that much firepower, but they will make it to where the other side of the card isn't receiving nearly as good a benefit. So you have to really, like Ryan said, you have to really think through how those upgrades are going in there, or you might shoot yourself in the foot.
In this version of the game that we played, there were 4 different characters you could play as, and each one had kind of a focus that it pushes you toward, but you are not locked in to any one playing style. You might just take the starting cards from that character and then go towards the play style that's encouraged by another character. You aren't limited in what that character can do. It's not a hard
you're
focus.
not locked in.
Yeah. It is a solo series game, so it's meant for one player, but you can play co-op with 2 players. It's just some things will be doubled as you go along, so you'll need twice as much in order to overcome some enemies or some of the different things that you'll encounter with the bosses.
So this game has a lot of card drafting and a lot of card crafting that you have to keep in mind. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, please check out Unstoppable by Renegade Game Studios on Kickstarter soon.
You didn't use the Oxford comma.
That's what threw me off. That's what threw me off.
The Oxford comma, man.
It's needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oxford comma and Pluto, both still real. Still needed.
Still needed. We still need you, Pluto.
You'll always be in my heart. Oxford comma.